You guys are being recorded, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
Just thought I'd let you know. Thought I'd inform you. Not on this call, like in general. You guys have been recorded.
Well, I live in a surveillance state, so.
Well, that's perfect because you are certainly being surveyed.
Yep, I'm currently being recorded.
Correct. So don't say anything that could get you in trouble.
No. Hey, fun fact. Actually, this might not mean anything. This probably doesn't mean anything to you guys, but this is our Black Friday episode.
Should we try to sell something?
We should. We are obligated to sell something. It's our first ever Black Friday sale. We went from no merchandise to some maybe merchandise if we could slap it together real quick.
I mean, how is that going to work?
I think, honestly, if we want to have this conversation, TeePublic stores are really simple to get, and it's print on demand. You just have to, have a file of what the thing is that you're wanting printed on the T-shirt, the mug, or whatever. I think, Dylan, if you were to if we were to use some of the thumbnails as like a thing, we could put like your thumbnails on like a T-shirt or like a coffee mug or something.
I mean, I don't know if anybody would necessarily buy it, but we could.
Well, it's print on demand, so we don't have to be worried about having a bunch of stock,
I mean, we can certainly give it a shot.
Yeah, it's like a bad idea. We could make a Baby Juggernaut shirt.
But then we have to draw Baby Juggernaut.
Yes, which I'm surprised we haven't done so far.
I was gonna say, what if we all draw what we think
our own
Baby
rendition, own rendition of Baby Juggernaut?
Yes,
it could be fun.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I call dibs on oversized helmet on a small child.
We can't call dibs on it. That's
the defining Juggernaut trait.
It's part of the design. You can't call dibs on his design. We've all come up with this together. Don't try to monetize Baby Juggernaut and steal.
Yeah. Well, that's the American coming out of me.
Just rude.
I'm just thinking of capitalism 24/7.
Well, it's in your nature.
It's in my nature. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Smark Avengers. My name is Corey, and with me are Dylan and John. Hey, guys. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, John.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Good. John, I found something that was really eerie last night that made me think of you. It was a YouTube.
Picture of you.
It was a picture of you.
That made me think of you.
Yeah. So what it was is it was a YouTube channel that it was like video essays on certain periods and musicians and stuff, and it's by someone in the UK because everything is like centered around that like music that came from your country.
Mm-hmm.
And his voice sounds exactly like yours. Like he has your same accent.
Why do you think that is?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. There are a lot of clones of me wandering about the place. Like, I see people who look like me all the time, and it's quite off-putting and scary. It's like, how did someone get my DNA and start spreading it around like this? What's going on here? Where's the conspiracy? What's happening?
No conspiracy. It's just a normal cloning technique that's been going on for many years now, where we got your DNA. Legally, I'm not allowed to tell you how I got that DNA from you, but I've been recording you for months now, so that can't be too much of a surprise.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's not that much of a surprise. And for the right price, the cloning people wanted some DNA. I happened to have some DNA lying around, provided it to them for the right price. And, one thing led to another. And now there's 7,000 clones of John in the United Kingdom. And we're all better off for it, I think.
Yeah.
Except for me.
Well, no, you haven't really interacted with the clones, so.
No, I hide whenever I see one.
Mm-hmm.
This is the beginning of a 2-part series where we are going to be talking about the always controversial topic in comic books, deaths. Because as the saying goes, the only deaths that stick around in Marvel and DC are Bucky, Jason Todd, and Uncle Ben.
And they've all come back at some point.
Yes, in one capacity or another.
Yeah. So, whoops.
2 of them stuck around, and then one of them keeps coming back as of the times that Uncle Ben has returned from the dead. What forms has he been in? Clone, definitely. I imagine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, oh man, I don't know. One
I
time he
think
came
there's
back
been
as
some like alternate universe Uncle Bens have ended up in the Marvel universe as well.
yes, that sounds about right.
But Uncle Ben's death of the 3 names is the only one that's been kind of not permanent in the resurrection area, considering Bucky Barnes has gone on to become the Winter Soldier and Jason Todd went on to become the Red Hood. Those are very iconic deaths, though. You know, Uncle Ben's death, aside from the MCU, was the inciting incident for Peter Parker to become Spider-Man. Bucky Barnes sacrificing himself, attempting to stop Baron Zemo's uh, missiles from launching. That was a big pivotal moment for Captain America. And of course, Jason Todd, a bunch of people called a 1-900 number and said, I don't like this character, kill him, please. So, you know,
They
all of
said
equal
please.
importance. They did. It was very polite.
Yeah, I think that's nice. They didn't have to say please.
No, they didn't. So this is a 2-part series. Part 2 is going to be the deaths in comics that we thought were the best, whether that be just well written or what was inspired because of it and how impactful it was. So that's part 2, though. Part 1, we're going to take a look at the sad trombones of comic book deaths. These are the worst comic book deaths. You guys good to go with that?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think
So
so.
we're going to go probably our standard formula of each presenting 3. Has there been any changes? I know last time we did one of these kinds of lists, there was a face eating rule.
I forgot about that.
I've completely forgot about that. What?
To be fair, we recorded that episode in like August. So the face eating rule is if you picked the same choice as somebody else to talk about, you got your face eaten.
Yes, I remember this.
So Dylan, how's the healing process been?
Well, fortunately, there was a clone of John knocking around that I just took his face.
There you go. Face off.
And he didn't seem to mind too much. So now me and John.
Well, he was so used to
and
seeing.
now I look like a clone of John, but I'm not the clone, even though I have his face now. This it's getting complicated. You know,
90s Clone Wars all over again.
It's a clone saga.
There you go.
And Norman Osborn comes back. It's a whole thing.
That's it, too. Well, no, we had a whole episode talking about it. Remember?
That's true, and I assume everybody listened to it.
Yes,
because it was really good.
Yeah, if not, go back because there's a comic book death that takes part in that, unless you don't count the deaths of clones for whatever reason.
Which is just rude to John and his many clones.
Yeah, it's bigoted.
You know what I mean?
All right. Does anyone have a preference as to who goes first?
Who normally goes first?
I think it's like you or John.
Okay, John, who do you want to go first? Me or you?
I don't mind. Flip a coin for it.
All right, have you got a coin?
Yeah, here you go.
Okay, thank you. Heads.
It's tails, sorry.
Ah,
all right.
I hope that you guys mimed out the passing and giving of the quarter, by the way. Fucking amazing. I love prop work there. All right, so did we decide who was going to go first because of the coin toss?
John
or
gets
did we
to
just
decide.
flip a coin? Okay. For a second, I thought we just flipped a coin.
We just flipped a coin for no fucking reason at all. Oh boy.
Yeah, I can go first then.
Okay.
All right.
Right. So worst comic book deaths. I'll start off with one that wasn't in the mainstream Marvel comic line, but was in a limited series by a guy called Care Andrews, called Rain. And this technically was a death that wasn't really shown in the comic books, but it was sort of revealed as it was going along that in this alternate version of Spider-Man set like 30 odd years in the future or whatever, Mary Jane Watson had died because Spider-Man's radioactive jizz had apparently given her cancer.
It's not a laughing matter at all.
No,
I
it's just
mean-
funny because this is not the first time we brought this up.
We have definitely talked about
We
radioactive
have
semen
talked-
before.
Yep.
It inspired
we'd-
so many conversations.
We'd start off on a high note.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a little annoyed that you thought this was one of the worst ones, because you're like, this proven to be very popular with us.
I mean,
Yes.
yeah, we find it funny, but let's face it, it's not exactly painting Mary Jane Watson in a good way, is it? I mean,
He's
she's
certainly
I
She
don't
wants to say
think I don't
something
I don't think
inappropriate.
it's painting her in a negative way.
no, but it's not the most dignified of deaths. Let's put it that way.
No,
it's certainly
no.
not dignified.
But she, they didn't know that was gonna happen.
I mean,
And
it didn't have to happen.
I think like from a writing point of view, I'm like, that's a really good point. Like Spider-Man does have like some sort of levels of radioactivity inside him, and like that never ever gets brought up or explained or mentioned or anything like that. It makes sense to me that his wife, the person he would be closest to, would suffer some sort of ill effects from that, from her not being a superpowered being.
Yeah, but at the same
Right.
time, it's not like you get Superman comics with him,
No, I don't
ejaculating into
know.
Lois Lane and then his super speed semen just tearing a hole straight through her body.
Wouldn't that be a
Like-
great Superman story?
That would be a horrible Superman story.
I can't wait to see the artwork for that.
Ay, ay, ay.
So to go back to what you were suggesting, Dylan, I don't
Mhm.
think that would work. The idea of like exploring the radioactivity of Peter Parker's bodily fluids. I think the reason that wouldn't work is it would be seen as an allegory to AIDS so fast. And I
Mhm.
just think in the year 2024, we don't need to cover AIDS the same way we did in the 90s.
You can't. That's you being very presumptuous. I don't think you could say that as a
Don't
fact.
drink out of the same water fountain as Spider-Man. You'll get radioactivity.
Well, no, but like, don't repeatedly get Spider-Man semen jizzed in you, and then maybe you won't get, cancer. I liked it. I thought it was, well. When I say I liked it, obviously, I don't mean I like the idea of somebody having cancer. That's not what I meant. But
But you do like the idea of somebody having radioactive semen.
yes, I've been talking about how much I love that idea for since the start of this show, Corey. That's the shirt.
There it is.
I
Coming
love
soon to TeePublic.
radioactive semen. That's the shirt.
Oh dear.
You brought it up, man. Well, I don't know how you thought this conversation was gonna go.
It only
We're gonna-
goes one way.
We're three very sensible, logical people who will treat the subject of radioactive sperm very seriously. Anyway, so you didn't like this stat.
No. Yeah, that's like I say, I don't think it was a very dignified way for MJ to shake off her mortal coil. But
Okay.
that's just me.
It's just you, man. We have a very different philosophy on life.
Yeah, obviously.
Oh boy,
Somebody is a deviant.
we got this one off to a great start.
All right, Dylan, you're up next.
Oh God, how am I supposed to beat that?
That's he set the bar
How do,
high
how do I beat radioactive jizz?
with a lead condom.
Nobody can beat it, man. It gets everybody in the end. You know what I mean? All right, I went for. I have a couple. I have four. I'm like, which bunch? Okay, so if we're talking about like just bad deaths, this is what I think is a bad death. A lot of people died in Avengers Disassembled.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
This is common knowledge. A lot of Avengers died, and they're like, well, it's just part of the game, I guess. They haven't died for the last 40 years, and now they're all dying at once.
Yep.
How about that? You know, and one of the ones I didn't like in that was Hawkeye. Are you guys familiar with this? Have we talked about this one on the show too?
I don't think we've
so.
talked about it in detail, if at all.
Okay. So, do you guys know what happened to Hawkeye?
I do, because he was on my list.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to talk about it? Because I have other ones to talk about.
No, I got 5 extras. We're good. Well, I have
Okay.
5 in total, so we're good.
Okay. Well, then we can both talk about this and we can both discuss it. But what happens is Hawkeye has his quiver of arrows on his back, and at some point there's like a Kree spaceship appears and it's like terrorizing people. So the Avengers are called and they're like saving the day and shit. And at some point, Hawkeye's quiver of arrows gets caught on fire. And Hawkeye's got all sorts of trick shot arrows. One of them like exploding arrows and all this shit. So Hawkeye thinks, all right, this quiver that's attached to my back that I can easily take off has been set on fire, and all my exploding arrows are going to explode. And there's no way for me to take off this quiver and walk away in time. I'm definitely fucked. But there is enough time for me to fly myself into the engine of the alien spaceship and explode it that way. And that's what he does. He sacrificed himself to save the day. But I'm like, I don't understand the logic of not having enough time to take the quiver off, but having plenty of time to fucking go into the engine of the spaceship. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-mm.
One of them takes literal seconds. The other one, I imagine, takes a little bit longer than that. No matter what way it takes you to fly into that spaceship, you could have the fastest hover car in the world. I don't think that's a better option than just taking off the quiver, right? Am I wrong?
No. Because when I was looking at that one specifically, it said Hawkeye, realizing he doesn't have time to take off the quiver of arrows, grabs one of the Kree soldiers who has a jetpack and directs them into the engine of the ship. That's like, so all right.
Yep.
In Dungeons and Dragons, there is this concept that every person's turn in combat it's 6 seconds. So if we're using like D&D standards, it means that in 6 seconds, instead of just going, oh, take the quiver off, he grabbed a man and then like forced the jetpack to go upwards into a ship. And I feel like one of those takes significantly less time than the other.
Right. It doesn't make any fucking sense at all.
Not whatsoever.
Like, it's such a weird thing to do. But there it is.
I will also say the art did him no favors, because in the panel that gets used everywhere, it's Hawkeye with his arms wrapped around this person, jetpack flying into the air, and then there's a word bubble that's just him saying "not like this." Now I understand the context of that. In the next panel, he says "like this," and like that's when he directs it into the spaceship. But like, I just feel like any death that involves the words "not like this" is going to be a sign this was an avoidable death.
Yeah. You could have just you're correct. Not like this. You didn't have to do this.
Yeah.
Absolutely no reason for you to do this. But he did it anyway because he's a good man. He saved the day or something. I don't fucking know.
Isn't it a pointless death as well? Because he comes back literally within months, because the House of M storyline kicks off.
Yeah.
Soon after this.
Wanda like brought him back, and like he and Wanda had sex, but she didn't remember who she was, so I guess it doesn't count. I don't know. But that's when he decides to become Ronin instead of Hawkeye.
Does it count?
I guess not, because I don't think they ever really like super addressed it afterwards. It's like, hey, remember we had sex? No, I don't, because amnesia or whatever.
Okay, but how radioactive was his jizz?
I don't know if you get brought back by reality warping magic. Does that have any side effects?
It's got to.
Well.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's like the only way for me to get you your memory back is for me to shoot my radioactive sperm in you. It's the only way. And she's like, well, that sounds logical. I trust this man that I don't know, you know? Spider-Man's like, don't do it, kid.
Don't waste your time, Clint.
Don't do it. You're
going to lead to heartache from here.
20 years' time, you're going to be in a lot of trouble, you know?
All right, John, any thoughts on Hawkeye's death?
No, I sort of agree. He's pretty poorly executed, and like I say, pointless as well, because he comes right back. So yeah, terrible death.
I agree. Terrible death.
All right. So I'm going to immediately follow up one Archer with a second Archer, and I'm going to talk about the death of Oliver Queen in the 90s. So Green Arrow was a very interesting character for DC because it was a character that freely evolved regardless of the continuity shifts. So like the original Golden Age Green Arrow was like just a shameless ripoff of Batman, to the point that he had an arrow car and an arrow plane and an arrow cave.
Of course
he had a kid sidekick who, you know, like when I think of Green Arrow, what's your sidekick's name going to be? Speedy. Does he have super speed? No. You know?
but he's addicted to drugs.
Yes, but he's revealed later on to get addicted to heroin.
He loves speed, you know.
He certainly does. So when Neil Adams got control of Green Arrow, that's when he started to break the character and kind of make him his own thing. It's when he grew the goatee out. It's when he took on more liberal views of the world, because like Green Arrow is one of the few comic book characters who absolutely has political beliefs and opinions that freely voice them. So he's like gets accused of being a socialist a lot of the time. So anyway, keeping in mind that idea that this character is going to evolve, like went from shameless Batman knockoff to, hey, my kid's sidekick is on fucking smack. In the 80s, Mike Grell got control of Green Arrow, and so the book shifted to a mature audience book. So now, like, Green Arrow, like, Oliver Queen's getting older. He's having to change his style of crime fighting because he's not as young as he used to be. He has an affair, despite being with Black Canary for a long time. So he's making a lot more morally great choices and ethical dilemmas. And this happened until DC started to create Vertigo. And they were like, well, we kind of want to roll Oliver Queen back into the main DC continuity. Because another element is he was not fighting like superpowered people or teaming up with like Batman and shit anymore for the most part. It was very much a story about a midlife crisis for all intents and purposes. So anyway, in the 90s, they shifted Green Arrow back into the main continuity because they did not really want superhero stuff at all to be in Vertigo. So he gets back into the main DC stuff, and the book goes okay. He ends up having to be the person that shoots Hal Jordan when he's trying to remake the universe into his twisted Green Lantern crazy manner. But ultimately, he sacrifices his life after tracking this group of eco-terrorists whose plan is to detonate a bomb over the city of Metropolis and destroy it. So Green Arrow teams with Superman. They board the plane that has the bomb, and while he's attempting to disarm it, he ends up getting his arm trapped inside of it. And so
what?
Yeah. So there's like on the bomb, there's a device that if anyone tries to disarm it, that like this metal cuff comes out and basically traps your arm inside of the bomb.
Okay.
So Superman's like, Ollie, I can get you out of there. I'm just gonna have to use my heat vision and take your arm off. And he says, no, it's better that we can keep the plane in the air, and you can get away before it blows up. There's no time for you to do that. Like, let's just, I'm old. I've been doing this a long time. Let me have this. So that's what happens. Green Arrow blows up in an airplane above Metropolis. And later on, Kevin Smith, a couple years later, Kevin Smith brings the character back, and he does it in a very interesting way, where Hal Jordan resurrects Green Arrow using his powers as the Spectre, and he brings back an old version of Green Arrow before he had the Longbow Hunters and was a mature audience comic book. So he was like still young and still like kind of an arrogant asshole. And they go into the afterlife because Ollie's missing part of his soul, and they find the older version of Oliver Queen there, who basically is in heaven, and he didn't want to leave heaven, so he just gave part of himself to return. And while they're having this conversation, young Green Arrow and old Green Arrow, the old Green Arrow pretty much admits that he chose to blow up in the airplane because, like, he had fucked up a lot of things in his personal life, and also he would be useless as a one-armed archer anyway. So he was like, fuck it, I'll just die. So for all intents and purposes, Green Arrow's heroic sacrifice was just suicide.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just die.
I guess I'll die.
Okay. Well.
So we have basically we have had two archers in a row who very well could have lived through the event, but just opted not to.
And we also had a woman who I don't
Got
feel
fucked
like
to
you.
death for all
I
intents and
feel like
purposes.
you neglected to talk about her again. It's just rude. I mean, the poor woman, she died.
I was gonna say something fucked up.
It's more fucked up than what we've already said.
Well, I was gonna say, in keeping in line with they could have avoided this, Mary Jane was one who insisted that Peter finish in cider every time.
Exactly. They all could have been avoided.
Good Lord.
She was a good Christian girl.
Certainly was. She was a Catholic.
Exactly. You know, maybe wouldn't have had this whole thing happen.
Yep.
Easily avoided.
Easily. So John, now that we're continuing to talk about your first pick, how about you hit us with your second?
Well, you'll be glad to hear there's no semen involved in this one.
I'm not glad to hear that at all.
Oh, wow. I don't know. Maybe I can squeeze it in.
That's what she said.
Hey! So for my second pick, I went for the death of Wolverine, which, I quite liked the way this whole storyline kicked off because it was all about Wolverine coming back from like a little adventure in the microverse with like a virus which basically shut down his mutant healing factor, and that was quite interesting because he's not really had that sort of vulnerability before, but now his healing factor wasn't working, so it meant like the adamantium covering his bones was like slowly poisoning his body from the inside. It meant he couldn't pop his claws without like tearing open holes in his knuckles every time, and then they wouldn't heal once he popped and closed again. So like he had to kind of take a different approach to heroics. Like he had to wear like a special suit to try and protect himself and all this kind of jazz. And yeah, it was like an interesting sort of alternate look at Wolverine, like still being a hero, still doing the things that he's always done, but like there being more stakes now, I guess. But yeah, so the storyline sort of culminates with him tracking down Dr. Cornelius, who was the former head of the Weapon X program, who's been trying to sort of replicate the experiments that he'd done on Wolverine back in the day, and then like setting them on Wolverine when he shows up to his island base. But Logan manages to like kill all these experiments and come after Cornelius, only to have him escape or try to escape by like activating this adamantium bonding process on one of his experiments. But before it can sort of bond to this experiment, Logan slashes the container with his claws and then ends up getting covered in all this molten adamantium. And yeah, that was it basically. He died from being stuck in like a molten adamantium statue. And it was, yeah, not exactly the way I think most people thought that storyline was going to go, to be fair. It wasn't like super heroic, like a big sacrifice or anything like that. It was just, oh yeah, now he's stuck in this big turd-shaped blob of adamantium.
He didn't
Yeah,
sacrifice
like
himself to like jump into a alien spaceship.
No, nothing like that. That would have been way better than what actually happened.
Yeah.
I feel like if you really wanted to kill Wolverine, you just essentially have to atomize him, like hit like a Doctor Manhattan situation.
Yeah, but I guess not everyone has
Because
the powers of Dr. Manhattan, though.
in Century, man killed a god with his bare hands. You could figure something out.
I feel like we should save that for our eventual "How Do We Kill Wolverine" episode.
Oh yeah, we need to get on those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We really need to kill him. God, we need to
But no,
kill him.
I agree with you, John. I feel like anytime any writer says they're going to do something pivotal with Wolverine, it's like, cool, there's a 99% chance that this is going to be dumb. Because I remember like Wolverine was like that first really cool character where you legitimately didn't know anything about him, and like the writers didn't really know anything about him, so you just kept getting these like cool stories where like the X-Men go to Japan and like there's people after him and he doesn't really know why, you know?
Yeah.
Like shit like that's cool because you don't know what's going on. But then the second someone's like, I'm gonna tell the definitive Wolverine story, you have now officially gone against the headcanon of anyone who's ever read Wolverine who had their own ideas of what it was. So therefore you're like destined to fail.
Yeah. Some things are better left as a mystery rather than needing to explain like every little detail of his life up to this point. Or even just like giving him his memories back. Like it was fine him, having these gaps in his memory and then not knowing about like all this stuff that happened in his past, because it's interesting storytelling, way more interesting than him getting it all back and remembering everything.
Yeah, that annoys me too. Where like sometimes like writers will leave something out there that's a mystery, and then somebody comes back 20 years later, like I'm gonna explain that. Like you didn't have to do that because a lot of the time it doesn't add up and it doesn't really make any sense. But also, you're allowed to leave that little bit of mystery there. You don't like that's part of Wolverine. He does have a very long, complicated life that we don't need to know everything about. Like that's all part of it. And then once you start adding a definitive like history to Wolverine, somebody else is gonna come and fuck it up anyway. Do you know what I mean? Because it's comics and they have to. But do you know how? Because I remember this happening, but I don't remember how Wolverine came back again.
So it was basically a villain who, again, hasn't had like much consequences or like consequential like storylines since all this happened, but a villain by the name of Persephone, who has the power to bring people back from the dead, and they basically become sort of her mindless slaves. So she'd done this with a few other people, and then she looked to do the same with Wolverine. But I guess, like, I don't know how his healing factor reactivated, but maybe in her resurrection process, it's sort of purged whatever microverse virus he picked up, and then once the healing factor kicked back in, I guess like he started to break free of whatever like mind control she had on him, and that was it basically.
Okay. Does that sound satisfactory?
Nope, not at all.
Oh boy, comics are the best, aren't they?
I mean, to be fair, I kind of admire Marvel's restraint, because he was gone for about a good 4 years as a character. They only had sort of old man Logan running around.
X-23.
Yeah,
Yeah.
X-23. So I will say that I always thought that was the biggest fucking cop out, to be like, we killed Wolverine, but we got old man Logan running around here.
Yeah.
So we still have Wolverine.
Yes.
Yes, he's very much still here, but it's different. But it's still Wolverine.
Yeah.
We do that a lot.
It's your turn,
I guess. Okay. So I'm gonna do this one. This is the one I'm not entirely sure that this is strictly a death, but it's a thing that happened that really annoyed me. That if it isn't a death, like really should have been. But it's when Aunt May died the second time.
I hate how you have to be so specific with this already.
Yes, because she died in the 90s, but then it turns out it wasn't her, so she didn't really die. And then later on in the 2000s, they had the whole Civil War thing, and Spider-Man took off his mask on TV and was like, "It's me, Peter Parker," and everybody was like, "Oh, what the fuck? Some fucking kid has been beating the shit out of us for 40 years. I don't like that." He has remained a kid for those 40 years. Is also very strange. So the Kingpin thought, I don't like this at all. I'm going to hire a man to shoot Peter Parker in the head. Now, the Kingpin has fought Spider-Man, I don't know, 1 billion times.
Roughly, yeah.
Probably aware that Spider-Man has a Spider-Man sense, where he can sense danger. For example, a bullet coming towards his head. You could probably see that coming, right? Second of all, in the Spider-Man comics, where like there's like the biggest cast of wacky, crazy ass characters, Kingpin was like, I'm just gonna shoot him. I'm just gonna shoot him in the head. Why did nobody else think of that? Just gun, shoot him with a gun. You know, sorry, Scorpion, don't have time for you today. I would hire you, but I just want him dead. So the Kingpin
full
thinks
Scott Evil.
yeah, just shoot him. Yeah. So Kingpin thinks it's a good idea to just hire some random ass fucking sniper guy. Not even like Bullseye. Right? Just some fucking regular ass guy to shoot Spider-Man in the head. And didn't at all think that like maybe Spider-Man would be able to avoid that bullet. Because as I've said before, he's been avoiding bullets for the last 40 years. But Kingpin's like, forget it. This time, it's gonna work. I have faith in my unnamed sniper you will never see again. So the sniper goes to Peter Parker's house, sees Peter Parker, shoots at him. Peter Parker, with his amazing spider sense, dodges the bullet. Who could have seen it coming? Not the Kingpin, that's for sure. But unfortunately for Spider-Man, Aunt May was behind him and she gets shot instead. Now, I put it to you, fellas, that if a bullet meant to kill Peter Parker was meant to kill Peter Parker, and it instead hits an old lady, wouldn't that old lady be dead?
One would hope.
One would assume that if
it would take a considerable chunk out of her.
If the Kingpin spent money on this hitman to kill Spider-Man, and the bullet meant for Spider-Man hit an old lady, and that old lady didn't die, then the Kingpin is just racking up stupid idea after stupid idea here. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is, why did you hire this guy at all? None of this has worked out in your favor, bud. You know?
So, what makes me wonder about it, though, is, like, Spider-Man has, like, enhanced durability. Like, just because you have super strength, you also have to have that, or every time you hit something as hard as you could, it would shatter your fucking arm. So
So you
one would
reckon?
assume that whatever like artillery the assassin sniper would have had that in mind. So if it hit on May, it'd blow a fucking hole in
Oh,
her.
I thought your angle was going to be that, oh, he could probably take a bullet.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. I'm talking about like how inadequately prepared this assassin seemed to have been.
This is what I'm saying. This is exactly what I'm saying. I bet that assassin just hit him with a regular bullet. Didn't even think about the idea that Spider-Man might be a little bit more durable than your average person, because he's just coming at him with a gun. You know what I mean? Like, do you really think you're the only person to come at Spider-Man with a gun?
Wilson Fisk was just thinking, I got it.
Yeah. I've fought this man extensively for many years. I finally figured out the secret. Gun. And the guy's like, I don't know. He's like, no, it'll work. Trust me. I've hired Carl. He's gonna be a sniper. He went to sniper school for 2 weeks, and that's pretty good to me. He has a little certificate. He printed it out himself, but I'm sure that if he stuck out the whole course, he would have got a certificate anyway. So he's pretty good, you know. So in my research for this, the way I remember it, Aunt May dies. But in my research for this, Aunt May didn't die and just went to the hospital, but was about to die. And so, interestingly, Spider-Man, a little callback here. Spider-Man gives Aunt May a blood transfusion of his own radioactive blood. So he's now killed his wife and his aunt with his radioactivity. So again, see, they could have mentioned that. They could have mentioned, hey man, don't give your aunt who's about to die from gun fucking wounds some radioactive DNA. That's gonna be bad, man. It's gonna be bad news. They didn't mention that. I think they should have. Anyway, all of this goes on. Spider-Man is so distraught that his aunt's gonna die again because he already saw her die once. But this time it's different because it's really his aunt, and she got shot in the head, and he doesn't like that. I don't remember where she got shot. Probably not in the head. Which again makes you wonder why the assassin would, if he was aiming for Peter Parker's head, and Peter Parker moves, and then the bullet hits the aunt. If he didn't get shot in the head, you're like, how bad is this guy as a sniper? Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So all this happens. Peter Parker makes a deal with Mephisto, the devil, to say, hey man, I don't like the fact that my aunt's about to die. Can we maybe do something about that? Can we not have her die? And then Mephisto says, of course. All you have to do is give up your marriage, and that's it. And then Peter Parker's like, that's great. Fuck my wife. And I did. And I gave her a lot of jizz. Radioactive jizz, that is. And Mephisto's like, what? What was that? And he's like, you'll see. It'll make sense in about 20 years. So this was like the kind of it was supposed to lead to a way to explain the fact to retcon the idea that Spider-Man had revealed himself and taken his mask off to everybody, which was a bad idea. And you know, they did it in such a fucking horrible, convoluted way. But it was just so I hated all of this. I hated all of this.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes. Is it about the radioactive?
Was this? Jizz? No, not quite. So, was the decision to unmask Peter Parker different from the creative team that was writing the Spider-Man book at the time? Like, was this a unified idea, or was this like the Spider-Man team having to go, I guess we're gonna have to start changing what we're doing in the books?
I feel like it potentially was. I don't know for sure, but because Civil War was like a big, storyline that happened over all the comics, there's a good chance that like an editorial team that wasn't strictly Spider-Man came up with that angle as a way to strengthen the core idea of the Civil War. And the Spider-Man guys are probably like, how do we fucking get out of this? You know, I mean,
think
that's what
as
it's
well, like Joe Quesada, the editor-in-chief at the time, was really against Peter Parker being married.
married
Yeah.
to.
And so they
Rich,
were
yeah.
just they were looking for any way they could just, you know, annul the marriage and get Peter back to being single again, because apparently that makes him, you know,
More relatable.
interesting. Yeah, which I don't know. I don't
It-
buy into that
It was
thinking at all.
super. Yeah, it was super weird how like how crazy opposed they were
Mm.
to the idea of Peter Parker having a nice life.
Yeah.
Like that was I always liked that you know, no matter how shite Peter Parker's life was, at least he had somebody to talk to. Do you know what I mean? There was something nice about that. Like a reliable kind of um consistency in his life.
Mm.
That he had his wife and they worked so well together. And for somebody to just go, I don't like her, fuck it, and just get rid of it completely. It's just that really annoyed me too. This whole thing.
I always
fucking
heard it was because Quesada was a Gwen Stacy fanboy.
Yes.
And that's what was a big factor in his dislike of Mary Jane.
But she's dead, and it would be weird if Spider-Man was going out with Gwen Stacy.
Nah, you gotta turn her into your teenage girl and then bring her from another alternate dimension.
And that's cool.
That's fine.
And it's not weird at all.
Nope.
No, it's normal.
Honestly, it reminds me a little bit when the New 52 launched and DC decided that all of the famous major couples couldn't be couples anymore. And it was like, does DC Comics have like a thing against married people? Because like Superman and Lois, who had been married for like 20 years at that point, they like broke them up and like Lois had a boyfriend and like, yeah, it was really weird. Barry Allen and Iris, who'd been together for a long time, they were no longer a thing. It was like there was just some weird editorial mandate that was like, no marriages.
Yeah, I don't know why they think that like a marriage in a storyline is going to be like such a fucking crux. You know, they're like, oh, this will never work. They're too happy. You know what I mean? Like, what this fucking? Because no, but if that's part of it too. We'll have to do an episode about fucking marriages in comics because, good God, nobody ever stays married.
Yeah.
You know, it's always a train wreck.
It's true.
Anyway, so mine was Aunt May the second time, but again, technically neither of these times she's died, so don't worry about it.
My next one's going to be on the death of traditional marriage in comic books.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so many to choose from.
Right. So like John's very first pick, but not involving jizz whatsoever.
Boo.
Why could you
John's
do this to us, Corey?
He's turned off now. There's no semen coming. So anyway, are you guys familiar with the world of Injustice for DC Comics?
Not really. Is that the one that's based
fighting
on a
game.
video game? Yeah.
Yeah, the video game. So the continuity for that video game is like wild. Like they have they have several comic book series about the Injustice world and everything. But I could very well talk about, you know, the most iconic death in Injustice. There's like two major ones. And this is neither of those two. So the first one is, of course, Superman punching a hole through the Joker's chest because the Joker and fear toxins and kryptonite made him kill Lois Lane because he hallucinated that she was Joker. And by killing Lois Lane, he also killed their unborn child.
What?
So, yeah, so that's why Superman went evil in the Injustice video game, because the Joker came to Metropolis and made him hallucinate that he had to kill this guy that turned out to actually be his wife and unborn child.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well,
and then the other one is when before like Shazam tries to turn on Superman and he grabs Shazam's mouth and then slowly lobotomizes him with heat vision. And it just makes Shazam look like a punk.
Okay.
Yep. But no, this one's going to be a little more pathetic. You guys know who Nightwing is, right?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Do you know what I'm about to say?
Nope.
Cool.
I don't know if I do.
Okay. So in the world of Injustice, as shit's popping off because people are going insane now that Superman's killing people and is on the way of becoming a dictator, uh, Arkham Asylum is like rioting. And so to kind of help quell this area of conflict, Batman, Nightwing, and Robin, Damian, are there to like clean up. And there's this division happening between Bruce and Damian because Bruce is like Superman crossed the line, he killed somebody, and Damian, who is was born and raised by the League of Assassins, is like, no, actually he did us a favor. Like, Joker's been killing people for decades, like a long time, and now he's gone because Superman did what was right. So like they have this sort of like debate on ethics and morals. And in the fracas, Damian gets heated at Nightwing for something he says, and he throws one of Nightwing's sticks at him. And Nightwing's not paying attention. It hits him in the temple, and as he's falling down, he lands on a rock, and his neck snaps.
Mm,
So that's how Nightwing dies.
Yeah.
He fell funny, and he hit a rock, and his neck broke.
I actually
Wow.
find this when I was researching some of this stuff today. I find that exact panel.
Yeah, because in the
that's
video
why-
game, it was like a big shocking reveal because like your character, whoever you're playing, you're in this like alternate universe where Superman's already a dictator and like several of the heroes are villains. And one of them is Nightwing, and he's got like red like armor, and his hair's grown long, and he's like nihilistic. But then in the course of it, you discover that's not Nightwing, that's actually Damian, and that Bruce is blaming Damian for Nightwing's death. So it was like a big reveal in the video game, but you didn't see how Nightwing dies. So when it came to the panel, people were like, "Huh."
it's not a great way to go.
No.
What do you think is a worse way to go? That one or the semen?
I mean, with the semen, at least Mary Jane still had decades of, love with Peter Parker, I assume.
Yes.
How old was she when she succumbed from cum?
They don't really specify, but I'm guessing it must have been.
It feels like because they're a lot older in that.
Yeah, but I think she dies quite young, and then Peter retires from being Spider-Man. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
There you go. There's your answer.
Yep, there you go.
We don't know.
Time will tell.
If the person who wrote that storyline could write into the show and answer these questions for us, we would really like that. Because we have a lot of questions.
Who wrote the Spider-Man story or the Nightwing story?
The Spider-Man story.
Okay.
We have a lot of questions about specifically about semen, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah, it's interesting that they would kill that guy off in that manner. To go back to the Nightwing thing, to get off the semen. It's a quite a weird take, but like it's one of those things where like in comic books, the whole point of it is to have these crazy, outrageous, fights and deaths and stuff that happens. It's nice that they did something that's like kind of believable and realistic.
Yeah.
Because like people die like that all the time, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, does that make for a good comic book story?
So the angle is that Bruce's rejection of Damian is what forces him to completely align himself with Superman. But in order to make Damian sympathetic, they had to show that it was like an accident. And I guess that was the best they could come up with of like, look, it was an accident. He was frustrated. He threw the stick. Nightwing got hit in the head and he fell funny, like, but that's not what you read a comic book for, especially if it's like superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if they kill off Alfred because he's changing a light bulb and he falls off the ladder.
Right. It feels a little bit like anticlimactic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, is this really? You've seen this guy for.
We can do.
We've seen this guy for years and years, and the way you decide to end his comic book life is he just slips in a banana peel. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, essentially.
I feel like we can do a little bit better than this. It's just such a weird thing because, like, like I said, comics are so bombastic. Look at all the stuff we've talked about so far. The radioactive jizz, but somebody get covered in molten metal. Somebody flew into a jet engine. You know what I mean? Like, and then somebody just like falls over. Like that's that's not the same at all.
No, not at all.
No, that's I don't know, man.
So, John, you want to hit us with your final one?
It's sort of along the same sort of lines, really. Well, not quite as like as
Stupid.
Yeah, innocuous a death, but it's more someone going out like without much fanfare. So basically, back in the day, Marvel brought back the X-Men in Giant Size X-Men #1, and basically introduced a whole brand new team of X-Men who came in and rescued all the originals from Krakoa. And then from that point on, it seemed like this new team was gonna start going on adventures and whatnot. And like issues after Giant Size X-Men #1, one of that new team has already been killed off, and that was John Proudstar, aka Thunderbird, who he dies on like a mission against Count Nefaria. And they basically won the day at this point, but Count Nefaria is trying to escape on a jet plane. So Thunderbird manages to jump up onto the plane and then start like ripping out all the wires and whatnot. Basically causes it to explode for, I mean, no good reason really, but he gets caught in the explosion and gets killed off. And it sounds like, from what I've read as well, like the whole reason he was put on the team in the first place was, writer Len Wein and the artist Dave Cockrum wanted a couple of members of the team, the new team, who were going to flunk out. So you also had like Sunspot, who was a member of that team as well, but then he quickly goes off to Japan. Like I think in this same issue that Thunderbird died.
Yeah, he quits.
But yeah, so their plan was never to make these guys like long-term members of the team, but introducing a character in one, Giant Size X-Men, and then 2 issues later killing them off. There's no emotional connection for the audience at that point. So it feels like such a weird, gimmicky kind of thing to do that it doesn't really resonate as well. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of a chump way to see him go. Kind of a shame as well that it's like a Native American character who's obviously a bit different from like a lot of the other characters on the team. And there's like a whole like ancestry and like history and all that kind of thing that you could play into or like tell some stories about. But yeah, it never comes to pass, and that's it for Thunderbird.
It does seem really cheap. It does seem really obviously like we're just doing this for like shock value or
to
somebody's gonna die. and it's like a guy that you have not had a chance to like actually get to know or understand yet. And also, like you said, it happened to be, not one of the many white guys that are on the X-Men. It's a Native American that dies straight away. Like, really, it's not great representation either. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of lazy.
Oh, big time.
Yeah, but that's a good one. I don't think that's super cool of them to do that. Really.
I was gonna mention, was Warpath came along years later, and
Yes.
like I thought like they did a decent job with the Warpath character of like his own issues with the fact that his brother died so soon after joining the team, and like there's a part of him that's like blames the other members of the X-Men for it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Right,
And then
but that's also something they had, like somebody came up with years later.
Yeah, years later. But and it was, did either of you see the comic where they are reunited?
No.
Krakoa.
Oh,
Krakoa
no.
stuff.
Oh,
So
that
they
makes
like
sense.
you see John and James like hug each other, and it's it's just like, wow, you kind of killed a lot of the buzz Warpath always had.
But they would. I mean, it'd be weird if they got together and like, fuck you, buddy.
No, just the whole like we have to resurrect every character. Every character.
They
Or people are gonna be
resurrected
like, why
every
didn't you resurrect
character.
this? Yeah.
They resurrected every character. You know.
Dylan, you up?
Yeah. Speaking of Krakoa and resurrecting every character, the one I'm gonna do. So I have another one after this. I guess we'll do honorable mentions at the end.
Yeah, of course.
There's a couple other ones, but this one I wrote about because this is very recent, and we've talked about this character before on the show. I don't think we've talked about this specific death before. I feel like we've alluded to it, but I feel like on this show I have made no bones about Beast being one of my favorite X-Men. I really like Beast. I loved what Grant Morrison did with him. I just thought he was super cool. He's a good-hearted, nice, smart boy. And in the Krakoan era, they didn't stick to that brief at all. They were like, we're going to make him a big meanie, a little villain, which is weird because there were plenty of other villains. There were plenty of other villains during that time. And they're like, yeah, let's fuck Beast up too.
No.
No need for that.
There's quite literally an evil version of Beast already.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they already had Dark Beast. He exists, and he has been existed for 20, 30 years, 25 years. Long time. We all know it. And they were like, no, that's not good enough. We need to make regular Beast evil. And then Dark Beast good? Is he called Dark Beast?
He is called Dark Beast.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's make it sure. I'm like, is that racist? I don't know. That's for the lawyers to decide.
Yep. I cracked a team of lawyers would figure it out.
And we don't have any lawyers. Because I have a feeling the lawyers would have had a lot to say, but they're like, guys, stop talking about jizz.
Yes. We also don't have a producer.
Radioactive jizz for a long time. So what happened was Beast turned bad. He had his own lofty ideals for what should happen regarding mutants and the whole Crowan society, and he was making his own plays. He was becoming very egotistical. A lot of things are about him, and trying to make himself the best, which is it's not at all what the Beast has been since his inception. This is not ever come up with the Beast. But whoever was writing this was like, yeah, he's an egotist now just because. So all of this basically leads us towards the end of the Beast's long and, in my opinion, disappointing heel turn. What happens is, at some point, long story short, like I said, a lot of stuff happened, but basically, Beast turns against the X-Men. When they're fighting Orcus, the Beast has a good idea where he's like, I know what I'll do. I'll stop Orgus myself, and I'll like make a crazy bomb that will trap all the mutants in like a pocket reality, so they can stay there safely while I get my business done. And some people are like, that's weird. I don't think you should do that. So the Beast is like, I'm gonna do it anyway. So he has like a big device, some kind of like nuclear powered device that he's gonna use to activate his black hole bomb. He's assaulted by the Avengers, one of whom is Wonder Man, who used to know Beast pretty well when they were both in the Avengers. Wonder Man attacks the device and it's damaged, and Beast is like, "Oh, it's a nuclear-powered device, you idiot! Now it's gonna explode and kill everybody." And Wonder Man's like, "I don't fucking care. I'm all right. I'm Wonder Man. Stupid. What are you gonna do about it?" But the Beast, in a rare to that era of Beast, a rare moment of like clarity and friendship, he decides that he doesn't want to see his good friend Wonder Man get hurt, despite the fact that for months and years he's been trying to hurt everybody else. No, forget that. Don't worry about that. Now he doesn't want to see Wonder Man get hurt, even though he's been fighting Wonder Man in the Avengers. Don't worry about that. Not important. So Beast grabs the device, jumps into the ocean with it, and it explodes. And in their and I to use their own verbiage, the explosion atomized the Beast. The Beast was atomized by whatever the fuck explosion happened, and that was it. That was their explanation for this whole heel turn with the Beast. They're like, well, just his gun doesn't work and he gets atomized. He's gone forever. Right? That in itself is unsatisfactory, in my opinion. As a fan of the Beast, to have this whole thing run out in not a good way, and then that's the end of it, you're like, I don't like this. But it's okay because Beast is immediately replaced by a clone of himself that has all of his ideas and memories, but only up until around about 1985, I think. So all of the other shit that happened after that, including, as I said, the Grant Morrison stuff that I loved, doesn't remember it. Didn't happen. It's all gone. So we have the old Beast that was a monster and died, and the new Beast is a clone of the old Beast, but doesn't have 30 years of his memories. Now I put it to you, fellas, that is not great. It's not a great way to wrap that up, is it?
No, definitely
I don't
not.
think so. I'm glad you guys are on board. I maybe it's my own bias coming out here. I don't like that. I don't think that's good.
And what makes it worse is it was the last issue of that X-Force comic where they had to wrap it up. And it feels like they had an idea for it to run a little longer, and then it was no.
Right. Whenever you read the panels, it's just like, and then it all ended, and Beast was gone, he's dead. And you're wrapping this up super quickly. One of the original X-Men is dead forever. We're just like, oh, it just happened. Whoops.
Oops.
You know? Yeah. Seems a little much, doesn't it? So yeah, I would say that's on the list because it did not make any sense to me. Corey, you read that. You read that, right?
Yes, I did.
So you agree?
Yes.
It's all garbage.
Yeah, it was done so quickly and like just smushed. I mean, really, the returning Beast, like the clone Beast with his old personality and memories, it was like a 3-issue story, but issues 1 and 2 were like everybody going, "This is a bad idea," and him sneaking out and like going to Wonder Man to like recruit him and helping him with this. Because another element of that you missed is Wonder Man is a pacifist now, so he refuses to fight.
Okay.
Yeah, so like it's his old version of Beast and Wonder Man, and Wonder Man refuses to fight even though he's way more powerful.
You could say it doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, no, like Beast proper gets brought in, and his whole like change of heart and death is like 2 pages at most.
It's not great.
No, it absolutely was. Hey, we thought we had more time before we were going to cancel the book so we can relaunch everything. Wrap it up.
Yeah, get to the point.
Exactly.
Which is a shame.
Yep. All right. Any more thoughts on the terrible death of Beast the terrorist?
No.
I mean, when you put it like that.
Yeah, right. All right. So this is my final one. Are you guys familiar with Chip?
Oh my God, this came up. This came up in my research as well. I know exactly what you're gonna say.
I have no idea.
John, is that legitimate?
No, legit, yeah. Unless
Okay.
it's about Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, then
Well, it
not
does
a
involve
million
furry
miles
creature.
away.
Oh, okay.
It does involve a furry creature. So Chip is a native of the planet Helven, and the natives of Helven, the Helvenites, are basically anthropomorphic squirrels. And Chip is found worthy and becomes a Green Lantern. So there is a Green Lantern that is a squirrel, for all intents and purposes. So what's weird about Chip is most of his stories occur in the Green Lantern core book from the 80s. And it's about like his home life. Like he's married and like there's this struggle of him trying to keep his marriage healthy whilst also being a Green Lantern. It is the wildest shit in the world because it's a squirrel talking about his squirrel wife and how like they've been fighting more and more and there feels like there's distance growing between them. Like it's fucking wild. So anyway, Chip's marriage actually does fall apart in the book, but during Crisis on Infinite Earths, the multiverse is destroyed, and Chip is the only Helvenite in the current timeline. And then Chip gets hit by a car and dies. But more specifically, Dylan, what is the weakness of Green Lanterns?
They're afraid of the color yellow.
Yes, they are weak to the color yellow. So Chip got ran over by a yellow truck.
Ugh,
And that is the
perfect
canonical that is the canonical death of Chip, the unhappily married squirrel Green Lantern.
If only it had been a red truck.
Right? You would have been totally fine.
Yeah.
But it's funny is Jon Stewart's there to witness it. So you just see like Chip flying under the wheels of this truck and Jon Stewart going, no, not that way. And you just see him like close his eyes and there's like a splat noise sound effect.
It's classy stuff.
It's super, super classy. Very classy.
Great stuff.
So we've made it through our 3 picks. Do we have any honorable mentions? People who you thought of, but ultimately in the course of the conversation, you decided not to speak on.
I do. John, do you have some?
I kind of have one big one, really.
Okay, I got 2.
I have 2.
All right, John, you want to go first?
Sure thing. I mean, we've talked about it loads before in previous podcasts, but basically the whole ultimatum event features just death after death, which is, I mean, it does nobody any favors how all these people die. Like Daredevil getting drowned in the ultimatum wave, Doctor Strange getting killed by Dormammu, who basically makes his like cloak or something just constrict his body until his
Worse, it's
engorged head. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And then there's obviously the whole Wasp death as well, where I mean, I think technically she dies from being drowned in the wave, but then Ant-Man finds her being eaten by the blob, and then Ant-Man decides to turn into Giant Man and then bite off the blob's head and kill him as well. I mean, there's just so many absolutely shitty deaths in that
Yeah.
event.
That Wasp panel, I think, is a full page panel. I think it was the last page of the first issue of that. This is all
Pretty
about
grim.
being shocking.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, that's it. Like, it's grim, and you're like, is there a point for this, or is it just because you guys wanted to be shocking and weird? You know.
Basically, yeah.
But maybe that's what they wanted to do. Maybe
Well,
that's what
good
they
on
were.
them. They managed to kill the entire Ultimate Universe line. So
Very quickly.
And all of the people in the Ultimate Universe.
The Ultimate Universe.
yeah.
You know.
All right, Dylan, I can do my remaining two if you'd like to do yours after. I feel like you might have better ones than me.
Debatable.
Okay, so the first one involves one of Dylan's favorite characters, Vulcan.
Okay.
Is this one of yours?
No, it's not. But
okay.
the fact that you called him one of my favorite characters is
yeah,
a bit of a dig.
So you guys are we talked about Thunderbird and we talked about Sunspot. Another one of those giant size all new X-Men was Sean Cassidy Banshee from Ireland, and Banshee had like a really strange run with the X-Men. So he was on that iconic lineup, but he was kind of forgotten for the most part, and he would kind of pop in and out. I would say that his most memorable role was one of the headmasters in the Generation X book. Because we got that
in the film.
Yeah, I was about to say, because we got that great, quote, Irish actor as Banshee. Well, let them use their powers. So anyway, Banshee's powers, as the name would suggest, is supersonic screaming. As the years went on after Generation X had graduated, Banshee started to take on a diminished role again until his throat was injured in a fight. So Banshee's like story at that point is like trying to rehabilitate his voice because he got like his throat cut, and he's on an airplane, and Vulcan has taken control of the X-Men's Blackbird and is going to slam it into the side of this passenger plane. So Banshee leaps into action, exits the plane, flies out, and attempts to use his sonic scream to stop the Blackbird in its path. But his voice isn't fully healed, and he just gets hit by the Blackbird and dies. And you actually see his body fly through the windshield of the Blackbird right before the Blackbird strikes that airplane and kills everyone on board.
Wow.
That's pretty harsh.
Yep. That's a rough one.
No need for that, is there?
No. So our second one I'm going to talk about is again related to Generation X. You guys remember we had the watch along where we watched the movie. You guys remember Skin, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So Skin is one of the millions of mutants who are impacted by the House of M and No More Mutants. And so he still is gray, but he doesn't have the super stretchy skin any longer. Well, Skin was out and about one day, and he and a couple of other mutants get captured by the Church of Humanity, who are a militant religious anti-mutant organization, and he and these other mutants are crucified on the front lawn of the X-Mansion. So it's Skin, Jubilee, Magma, and a couple of other mutants are crucified and dying. So at this point, Archangel, we talked about this in our Archangel episode, he got the unique new trait of his blood has healing properties. So they start to give blood transfusions to the others. So Jubilee lives and Magma lives, but Skin doesn't. So he is one of the unlucky few whose Angel's healing property blood, that's certainly not weird at all to talk about, does not resurrect.
If he had radioactive jizz in him, though, he would have been up on his feet in no time.
Yep. I don't want to know how you put that into someone's body. I mean, I know how.
I can tell you how to put radioactive jizz in somebody's body. Let me tell you.
All right, Dylan, those are my two.
I've seen a lot of videos about putting jizz in people's bodies. I don't want to brag.
I'm not proud, but I've done the research.
Those lawyers are like, you got to stop talking, dude. You got this is not good.
Our imaginary producer is just shaking their head.
Yeah, they're like, we're gonna have to fire him.
We have to rein these guys in somehow.
He's bad news, man. So I have two other ones. One, I am convinced we've talked about in the show. I say I have talked about this in the show. I guarantee I've talked about this multiple times. It's a member of Ecstatics called El Guapo.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ecstatics used to have a gimmick where like somebody would die like every issue. A lot of the time, it was a very strange comic, and they were kind of poking fun at the idea of comic book deaths. So people would die in their comics all the time. El Guapo was a man whose mutant power was he had a sentient skateboard that would do stuff. And one day he is like skipping down the street and he sings some song to himself, and that song turns his skateboard against him, and El Guapo ends up being impaled by his own skateboard. So if we're talking about stupid comic book deaths, that's got to be right up there.
Mm-hmm.
What a way to go. Impaled by your own skateboard.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Pretty embarrassing. The other one I wanted to talk about is Spider-Man, the Other, where in this comic book series, Spider-Man dies while he's fighting Morlun. Morlun beats the shit out of him, but doesn't kill him. He goes to the hospital. Morlun comes after him in the hospital. Spider-Man suddenly has a big burst of strength, and he gets stingers out of his wrists for some reason and stabs Morlun. And then Peter Parker seems to die. And everybody's like, well, that's him. He's dead. But what happens is Peter Parker is like skin. He kind of like molds his skin. You know, you can shed your skin like spiders do that. Mm-hmm. So his skin gets taken away to the Avengers Tower, but Spider-Man himself just wraps himself up in a cocoon underneath a bridge. So he's dead, but he's not dead. And then he emerges from the cocoon about 3 days later, and he has the wrist stingers, and he has other powers as well. Powers such as night vision, the ability to feel vibrations along his webbing. I believe he had the organic webbing as well.
Yeah.
Through this transition. And as you can imagine, almost none of these newfangled powers got remembered about. The organic webbing stuck around until the Mephisto debacle, where they just said, oh yeah, we changed that one too. It's back to regular.
Yeah, we put that as a freebie.
Yeah, that's in there too. We're just changing loads of shit about it. But like, it was such a pointless thing. Like, he dies and he comes back and he's got all these powers and he doesn't use them. It was so stupid. So that was pretty close. It was either that or Aunt May, you know. There's a lot of questionable stuff in Spider-Man comics, gotta say.
It seems that way, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. We talked about a lot of it on the show, you know. That's my list.
All right, well, those were our worst comic book deaths, and that will be an episode. So, John, what is your movie count at currently?
I am up to 717.
717. What was the last one you watched?
It was a movie from 1951 called The Prowler, which, to be honest, didn't really feature too much prowling. But it was a pretty decent noir thriller. Yeah, quite enjoyed it. Check it out.
Dylan, is there anything you would like to promote?
I guess check out our Baby Juggernaut t-shirts on Teespring or whatever. We haven't. What do we put them on?
Yeah, we'll get one out there, I'm sure.
We'll figure something out. If there is merchandise available, there'll be a link in the description of the YouTube video, and not on Spotify because we haven't figured that out yet. Maybe will be in Spotify. I don't know if you can add descriptions on Spotify. Can you add links to Spotify? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure you can.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
There's actually like a store thing you can do on Spotify. I'll have to figure that
Oh,
out.
okay. Well, we'll see how that goes. I guess I promoted my book last week. I could do that again.
Yeah, go for it.
It's called The Wonderful World of Captain Explodey. It's available on Amazon. I think it's like £8, $7.99 for the physical copy. I think it's like $2.99 or $3.99 like for the ebook. But get the physical copy so you can hold it in your hands and appreciate it. I think you'll like it better. I'm trying to write another one. There should be another book coming out soon. I don't know when. I was trying to get it done before the end of the year. I don't think I'm gonna get it done before the end of the year. But keep an eye out. There'll be more good stuff coming out soon. I think that's it.
All right. Well, you can find me at my other show, Large Old Cup. Since those episodes come out live, you've not noticed a break if you're just now learning about it now. So that is a stream of consciousness podcast where I just talk about whatever's on top of my mind as I'm recording. And as soon as the recording's done, it gets posted. No editing, no nothing. So with all of that being said, we will see you all next week as we pretend that time is moving, where you will listen to us discuss what we think are the best comic book deaths. But until then, we'll see you all later. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.